Welcome to this tutorial on how to compute a correlational analysis. We're going to be working on computing Pearson correlations using SPSS. And so let's go ahead and let's take a look at this tutorial instructions that you have, you can find on Blackboard. So let's think about our hypothetical research background information and the research question. So here I have a situation where I am interested in examining the association or the relationship between the number of aggressive acts that children show and the number of prosocial acts that children show. So I go and I observe 10 children and I record how many aggressive acts and how many prosocial acts each child exhibits. And so my question then is there a correlational relationship between these two variables? So thinking about what kind of a statistic is appropriate to use here, we want to look at the relationship between the variables, not a group difference. We're looking at the relationship. And I have two variables that are of interest, right? I'm interested in aggression and I'm interested how that relates to prosocial behavior. So if you look at your instructions here on page 1 of your tutorial, you'll see that you have some data there and it matches what I have right here on my screen on SPSS. And so you're going to want to make sure that you go ahead and enter that data. You can pause the video if you haven't done that already. Remember that SPSS has the data view and it also has the variable view. So right now we have the data view selected, which really looks a lot like an Excel file. And here are our names of our columns. Here's the participant number, and I've numbered the participants just from 1 to 10. And then here is the data for, here are the data for the number of aggressive acts that each child showed, and then the data for the number of prosocial actions that each child showed. So when you are entering your data, you can go ahead and click on variable view down here, and then this is where you are able to give a name to your different columns, and then you can add labels and values and all that other good stuff that you learned in the Cronk book in the previous course in EDG 9050. So let's go ahead and let's work on doing this analysis. So you need to have all of your data in already. So to do a Pearson correlation, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Analyze, and then we're going to go to Correlate, and then Bivariate. So Analyze, Correlate, then Bivariate. The next thing that we want to do is we have to tell SPSS exactly what variables we want to correlate with one another. Well, we want to look at the relationship between the number of aggressive acts that children exhibited and the number of prosocial acts that children exhibited. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight my variables here. There's aggression, and click the arrow so that it shows up here in the variables box. Now I want to click on prosocial acts and click the arrow. So now I have both of my variables here in the variable box. Now I am ready to go ahead and compute my Pearson correlation. You'll notice that the default setting here is for Pearson right here. Don't change any of the default settings in any of the analyses unless the instructions tell you to change something. So never change anything of a default setting unless the instructions tell you to change it. So we're going to go ahead and click OK here. And let me go ahead and let me pull up this so that you can see. The output. So, okay, now you can see the output for SPSS. So SPSS computed our Pearson correlations here. And so here we can see that the correlation between the number of prosocial acts and the number of aggressive acts is, the value of that correlation is a minus 0.921. We see that it is significant. SPSS is a really helpful thing of letting you know when something has met the level of significance. We are setting always alpha to 0.05 with the exception of other situations that we'll learn about in the future. But here we can see that, that these correlations were significant at a very at a very specific significance level. Remember when SPSS tells you that the significance is 0.000, we go ahead and we interpret that as p less than 0.001. So we would write this as p less than 0.001 when we see this. So so our variables here are negative related to one another. The information that we have to get here out of the SPSS output is we have to take the correlation, we want to record the significance, and we want to record the n, the size of the sample. And so you can see there on your tutorial that that I show you exactly how to write those numbers in APA style. And so if we had to take this minus 0.921 and put it into words, what does that mean in words? This means that the analysis revealed a significant relationship between the number of aggressive acts and the number of pro-social acts that the children showed. So specifically, this is a negative relationship here, right? We have a minus 0.921. So that means that children who exhibited more aggressive acts showed fewer pro-social acts. Or another way of saying it is that children who showed more pro-social acts showed fewer aggressive acts. Both of those mean the same thing. So if you look a little bit further down on your tutorial, you will see that I show you how to write this in APA style for your paper. And remember here that whenever I give you a template, you are free to use that template for writing your APA style results sections for the assignments. And then also whenever you need to write an APA style results section, go ahead and use my template. So you can see here that there are 3 things that you need to do for reporting this analysis. The first thing you have to do, it's highlighted in yellow, is you have to tell the reader the type of analysis that you did and the goal of the analysis. So we can do that really easily by writing a sentence like that a correlation was used to examine the relationship between the number of aggressive and pro-social acts that children committed or children showed. The second thing that you need to do, and I have that highlighted in green, is that you have to give the results of the analysis. And so you can see that I have a sentence there highlighted in green that reads, the results revealed a significant negative relationship between the 2 variables. And then I go ahead and report the correlation and the size of the sample and the significance value. And then last, we have to describe what the analysis means in words. And so what this analysis means in words is that children who exhibited more aggressive acts showed fewer pro-social acts. And so you would want to go ahead and write that out. The next thing that we want to do is we want to look at what does that scatter plot look like. Remember that when you're doing correlational analyses, you always want to look at the scatter plot and make sure that your correlation that you're seeing isn't being influenced by outliers, right? Is that a real correlation that you're seeing, or was it influenced by outliers? So it's really helpful to look at those scatter plots. So I'm going to go ahead here. You can close this window, and that's fine. You close that window by clicking right here. Another thing that you can do is you can just go to File, to New Output, and that will give us a new output screen. And let me make sure that you are still able to see this new output screen here. Give me just a second. Let me switch this over. Okay, so now you should be looking at my new output screen. We want to go ahead and we want to look at that scatter plot. So to do the scatter plot, we're going to go to Graphs, and then we're going to go to Legacy, and then we are going to go to Scatter. We're going to go to Scatter dot, which is right down here. So we're going to go ahead and use the simple scatter here. We can go ahead and click Define now. We want to put one of our variables on the x-axis and another variable on the y-axis. So I'm going to go ahead and put aggression on the y, and I'm going to go ahead and put pro-social on the x, and I want to click OK. And then here, SPSS is showing my scatter plot, right? It's plotting that data that we put into SPSS. And what you can see here is that our scatter plot is really showing a true negative relationship between our variables, right? As the number of aggressive acts increases, the number of, here's pro-social acts, the number of pro-social acts decreases. So remember, this is the direction that we see in negative correlations. And when I'm looking at this, I do not see any outliers, and that's a good thing. And so the fact that I don't see any outliers here means that I don't have to worry about the influence of outliers on my correlational analysis. So I can know that what I'm seeing there in the SPSS output, that really does reflect a true negative relationship between the number of pro-social acts and the number of aggressive acts. So this concludes our video here on how to compute a Pearson correlation using SPSS.